All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little bit different, but trust me, it is incredibly fascinating. We're going to deconstruct a 400-year-old text, specifically a scene from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. Now, you might be thinking, why are we looking at an old play? Well, because this specific scene serves as a terrifyingly relevant playbook for modern crowd manipulation. I mean, human psychology really hasn't changed much, and the exact same tactics we're about to uncover are still being used all around us every single day. So, let's dive right into the core mystery here. At the start of this scene, the crowd is literally shouting, "Live, Brutus, live!" They are so pumped up they actually want to build a statue for the guy who just assassinated Julius Caesar. But then, just minutes later, that exact same crowd is screaming, "Revenge, burn, fire, kill, slay!" I mean, what a 180, right? How exactly did Mark Antony flip an entire city from wanting to crown an assassin to wanting to burn his house down, using absolutely nothing but words? Section 1. Brutus appeals to logic. Okay, so we enter the scene right after the assassin, Brutus, has successfully justified his murder to a highly volatile Roman mob. And this brilliantly illustrates the battlefield. Brutus basically forces a cold, binary logical choice on the crowd. He says, not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. He's essentially asking them, hey, would you rather Caesar be alive and you all be slaves, or Caesar dead and you be freemen? It's a completely intellectual argument, but Antony? He immediately counters this cold logic with deep, personal, emotional vulnerability. He tells them, he was my friend, faithful, and just to me. See what's happening? Brutus gave them a thesis, but Antony gives them a beating heart.
Section 2. Antony's subtle opening.
Picture this. Antony is stepping in front of a crowd that currently hates Caesar. He walks right up to this hostile mob and delivers this famous line, "I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him." It is a genius move. Antony starts by claiming a completely neutral stance. He's assuring this defensive, pro-Brutus crowd that he's not there to argue with them or overturn their new worldview. Nope, he's just there to mourn his friend. And just like that, he immediately lowers their guard.
Section 3. Weaponizing the word honorable.
Now notice how Antony weaponizes a single word to execute his subversion. Early in his speech, he brings up Brutus and the assassins, and he states very respectfully, "For Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men." At this specific moment, he's seemingly agreeing with the crowd's current high opinion of the conspirators. He's acknowledging their authority. And the crowd? They're nodding along, like, yeah, we agree, Brutus is honorable. But then, the pivot. Antony starts dropping in counter-evidence about Caesar's character, and he follows it right up with, yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. He repeats the exact same phrase, but this time, it begins to sound, slightly hollow. He's placing Brutus's claim of ambition right next to evidence that proves the exact opposite, and that plants the very first seeds of doubt in the minds of the plebeians. By the time we get a bit further into the speech, the subtext has completely flipped. He says, "I fear I wrong the honorable men whose daggers have stabbed Caesar." Through sheer repetition, careful pacing, and heavy irony, the word honorable has been utterly drained of its original meaning. It has become a biting, sarcastic accusation of treason. And the wildest part? The crowd completely absorbs this new definition. So the absolutely crucial point here is how systematically Antony dismantles Brutus's core thesis. The accusation from Brutus was that Caesar was a dangerous, ambitious tyrant. But Antony doesn't just stand up there and say, no, he wasn't. Instead, he brings receipts. He presents hard, emotional data points that directly contradict the claim. Ambition? Caesar brought captive ransom money home to fill Rome's public coffers. Ambition? When the poor cried, Caesar wept. Ambition? Antony himself presented Caesar with a kingly crown 3 times, and Caesar refused it 3 times. He completely crushes the abstract logic of Brutus with concrete, undeniable emotional evidence. Section 4. Props, Pity, and Passion. With the logic of the assassins fully dismantled, Antony now moves to the theatrical climax of his manipulation. And I mean theatrical. He executes a literal step-by-step physical manipulation of both the space and the crowd. Step 1. He asks to descend from the pulpit and join them in a circle on the ground, completely erasing the physical barrier between politician and people. Step 2. He shows them Caesar's torn, bloody mantle, pointing out exactly where the well-beloved Brutus stabbed.
This invokes intense nostalgia and deep pity. And finally, step 3, he pulls away the cloak to reveal the bloody, ruined body of Caesar himself. He's using visual props to just completely break the crowd emotionally. And what is so incredible about this is that while he is doing all of it, he uses false modesty. He looks at the crowd and tells them, "I am no orator, as Brutus is, but a plain, blunt man." I mean, come on. He literally claims he lacks the wit, the words, and the power of speech to stir men's blood, right as he is orchestrating a total masterclass in it. This faux humility further endears him to the commoners. It makes them feel like the anger is their idea, not his. If we track the temperature of the crowd through their exact dialogue, it is darkly fascinating to see the progression here. They start at the very top, wanting to crown Brutus, saying, "Let him be Caesar." Then, as Antony speaks, that doubt creeps in. Methinks there is much reason in his sayings. Then the props are revealed. Oh, piteous spectacle. And finally the explosion. "We will be revenged," which immediately leads to burn, fire, kill, slay. You can literally see the exact trajectory of a crowd spiraling into a violent, murderous mob. Section 5. The final straw, Caesar's will. But Antony knows he needs to guarantee their rage actually translates into sustained, directed action. Now, he had actually mentioned Caesar's will earlier in the speech to tease the crowd, but he refused to read it, claiming it would make them too mad. Well, now, with the crowd already at a boiling point, he finally reveals the contents. The literal price of their loyalty? 75 drachmas given directly from Caesar's estate to every single Roman citizen. Boom. And he doesn't even stop there. He layers on the inheritance of real estate. Caesar has left the public all his walks, his private arbors, and his new planted orchards on this side of the Tiber to use as public parks forever. Antony perfectly isolates the exact moment self-interest permanently seals the conspirators' fate. At this point, it's no longer just about avenging a fallen friend. It's about the crowd desperately protecting their own sudden wealth. Section 6. Mischief is afoot. As we wrap up the core of this rhetorical masterclass, we have to look at the immediate, chaotic fallout of Antony's victory. The result is just absolute devastation for the conspirators. The mob takes Caesar's body to burn it in the holy place, and then uses the firebrands from that exact fire to set off and burn the traitors' houses. The previously victorious Brutus and Cassius, who started this scene as the undisputed rulers of Rome, are forced to flee through the gates of the city like madmen just to save their own lives. Antony has won. Completely and totally. So, as we close out this explainer, we really have to ask ourselves a serious question here. Antony manipulated an entire nation with a carefully crafted narrative, false humility, a bloody cloak, and a piece of parchment. If human psychology hasn't changed in 400 years, or frankly even 2,000 years since the actual historical events in Rome, how are these exact same tactics being used to manipulate us right now? What are the bloody cloaks popping up in our modern news feeds? What props are being used to stir our mutinies today? Keep an eye out for those plain, blunt speakers out there, and I will see you in the next explainer.